Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Welcome to a special episode of Poker Uncensored. We are live tonight because COVID-19 has taken over America. People are in fear. The stores are running out of food, and poker is being canceled. But for some of you, poker being canceled is the least of your worries because some of you may not make it to the next podcast. Some of you may not be alive when that comes. But first, real quick about me, your host of Poker Uncensored. I'm Matt Solon. I have been nicknamed His Highness Hold'em, played poker tournaments and cash games in multiple states and even internationally, based out of the greater Boston area. And I'm not afraid of the truth. We're not going to be soft tonight, right? We will not be soft. We're going to tell you the truth. We're going to tell you what's going on with this thing, and we're not going to sugarcoat it. I will come out here and I will say there are people who will not be alive by the next time we do another podcast. Now, granted, maybe we do one in 2 days, but if we don't do one for a month, there will be people who have died between now and then. And in addition, I've got an expertise in finance, got an expertise in technology, and I've helped save millions of dollars building efficiency, building customer satisfaction. So enough about me, though. You guys can be a part of the show, and all you've got to do that is post your comments, post your questions. They can go directly on YouTube. Very easy to do that, right? If you're watching the YouTube stream, you can just post them there. They can also be tweeted. The hashtag to use is one word, Poker Uncensored. The spelling actually doesn't matter. All lowercase, all uppercase. You want to mix up the case and have some fun, go ahead and do it. So that's how you can be a part of the show. But let's give a quick flashback, right? On our last episode, we talked about what was going on with coronavirus. And yeah, we misspelled coronavirus. That was a shame. But, we weren't too worried about it then. We said, hey, if you're outside of Greater China, you don't need to worry. Well, things have certainly changed. Things are not the way they were 6 weeks ago. Just last weekend, for example, it was pretty clear to us that, hey, coronavirus was a big concern in the United States. People were afraid to go out there, afraid to go do their normal activities. It's not good. Not good at all. And then companies were starting to restrict employee travel, and they were starting to really promote remote work. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is a sign that there's a lot of people that are afraid. Also, last weekend, I was on live with Mike the Mouth Matisow, and I was talking about the situation where I felt like, hey, the media is overhyping the situation here, right? The media is talking like it's doom and gloom. They're overhyping it. They're making people get overly worried. And as you can see, well, things once again have changed, right? So yeah, the markets were selling off. They sold off even worse. Things are definitely different, right? This week, coronavirus is in a majority of countries in the world in 49 of the 50 U.S. states. The only state that hasn't reported it so far, West Virginia, and that's probably not going to last long. Infection numbers are rising. The death toll is rising. The stock market's down 20% from the highs. Entertainment venues, restaurants, and more are postponing events or being ordered to close. The U.S. has banned people coming in from Europe, and they're going to extend that ban to the United States, to the United Kingdom and Ireland. Casinos are closing. Every casino in Massachusetts, Illinois, and Rhode Island has been closed. Encore Boston Harbor, closing tomorrow. MGM Springfield, closing. Twin River, closed, right? Rivers and parks in Pennsylvania also closed down, and other closures are being announced every day. Poker rooms are now canceling and postponing events, even stopping live action cash games. WPT Maryland should be running right now. I should be playing in the WTP Maryland right now, right? I should be playing this event. Well, guess what? It was postponed indefinitely. Other WPT events postponed across the country and even in Europe. On top of that, Foxwoods Poker Classic, canceled after this weekend's high flyer stack. Live action cash games getting suspended. Now, one man here, Slicer, he's coming in and saying, you are the sickest human on earth for saying some of us are going to die. You need serious mental help. Well, guess what? Some people are going to die. That is a fact. If you look at this disease across the world, roughly based on WHO estimates, somewhere around 2 to 4% of the people who contract this disease will die. And that means that, yeah, some of the people that play poker in the world, they're going to die. They will not make it to see the summer, right? They will not make it to see Christmas because they are going to die from the novel coronavirus, from COVID-19. And that's a reality. And some people want to sugarcoat it. They want to say, oh, everything's going to be okay. You don't got to worry. Nobody's going to die. It's all cool. That's not the truth. The truth is there are going to be people dying. This is why this is so serious, right? The governments are taking a position of stepping in, spending billions of dollars. It is a huge public health crisis, and it is a pandemic because there will be people who do not make it to the summer. There are people who have already died. There are a number of people, countries like China, Italy, Iran, even here in the United States, there are people who have died from this disease. Now, on to the next question that we've got in here. This comes from a man by the name of Mike, and Mike wants to know if I am going to be playing come Sunday. Well, you know what, Mike? No, I won't be playing come Sunday. And I've again, I don't want to impose, my views on anybody, but ultimately come Sunday, I don't see any reason for myself to personally go play. And that's not to say, hey, if other people were to say, well, they want to go play, they're free to go play, right? People can make their own decisions. They know the risks, right? Everybody knows the risks at this point. This has been on the front page of the newspapers. It's been on every news channel. You turn on Fox News, they're talking coronavirus. CNN, coronavirus. CNBC, actually, the market's closed, so they might not be on, but if they were, they'd probably be talking about coronavirus. You turn on MSNBC, coronavirus. Headline News, coronavirus. Russia Today, the BBC, CTV, coronavirus, right? So people can make their own decisions. In some cases, the casino's closed. If they're open, though, and I think it should be up to each facility to make that decision. If they're open and people want to go play, yeah, you can go play. Just understand that by being out in a potential crowd, you are increasing your risk of exposure to COVID-19. And ultimately, yeah, that could lead to you dying. Hopefully nobody does die because they went out and played poker, but that very well could happen. So continuing on here to our next question that we had come in. Oh, and by the way, actually, if anybody is interested, we have today here, again, the ability to be a part of the show. You can post your comments on YouTube. You can tweet using hashtag Poker Uncensored. Now, one of the topics that I wanted to hit on is what is the worst case scenario with this thing? What happens if our entire society and our entire supply chain collapses? And that's something that some people have been worried about. You got people out of the stores buying 60 days worth of food supply, thinking that the stores aren't going to get restocked, that the entire food supply chain breaks down. And if that happens, people are going to be in trouble because the unprepared, they will run out of food, right? And then it's going to be on either the government to come in and essentially save them, the good others, charity essentially to save them, or they're going to have to resort to getting that food by essentially criminal means, right? Your neighbor's got a stockpile of food, you're starving and they won't give you any, you steal it from them because it's either steal or die. And that could lead to a breakdown in society. That could lead to anarchy. That's why you've got people going out. So if you look at the numbers, this is actual data, the background checks for firearm sales are up. People are going out, they're stockpiling firearms, they're stockpiling ammunition because they are afraid that it's going to come down to an every man for themselves, you got to defend yourself scenario. Now, I'm hoping that doesn't happen. I don't think it's going to happen. I think we will get this under control, but that's your worst case scenario. So in a worst case scenario, nobody cares about playing poker anymore because it's simply going to be an effort to try to survive. And that's going to bring us to a question here that came in from, and this is actually not really related to coronavirus at all, but we'll take it because we love questions here. So this is from Poker Guy 67. He wants to know, how the hell did you get a bounty put on you in Manchester by Tommy K? Well, that's an interesting story. So during the last 2-day in the Queen City, so there were no bounties from the poker room, right? There were tournament high hands that they put up. However, on the evening of the first day of play, so I got the opportunity to basically sit at the same table as Tommy Kay, who is pretty well known in Manchester. He's used to be a part of the government up there or whatever, but basically I drew out on him and he was not happy. So he got knocked out of the tournament, right? I basically took all his chips because I sucked out on him. I mean, it was not a nice suck out. Like the guy had a legitimately strong hand. I think he had like pocket queens, pocket jacks, something like that. I decided that I would get it all in with like king five suited, and I ended up running out of flush on him. So yeah, I got it all in pre-flop with king five suited, and I sucked out on him when he had obviously a better hand. So he was not pleased. So he said, "Hey, whoever takes this guy out of the tournament, I got $150 for you." And that was what ended up happening. So he threw a bounty on me because he was not pleased with getting sucked out on. You know what? If somebody sucked out on me like that, I wouldn't be pleased. What sort of donkey idiot gets all of his chips in free flop with king five? Like, come on, really? So, ultimately, ultimately, what happened for me, the logic here, I'm short stacked. I need a key double up. So I don't want to go into day two short. So I decided hey, the next hand I get any ace, I get any king, any pair, or any suited broadways, it's going in. While I got any king, which happened to be king five, it all goes in, and I suck out on the guy, which was unfortunate for him because it knocked him out of the tournament. So that's how I got a bounty put on me there. So let's see if we've got any questions on Twitter today. Let's see here. Tweet. Oh, we've picked up some followers on Facebook, that's for sure. Dude, let's see. We have. So, unfortunately, Twitter is not. We don't have any questions, but again, if you're on Twitter, hashtag poker uncensored, and you can click there. And then the other interesting thing, by the way, I want to point this out. So some of you who are a part of the Limp Call group, or might be in that group, they do not want you listening to this podcast. It's very interesting. They don't want you listening to this podcast. They have actually censored the posting of the link to this podcast. It's just amazing thuggery, right? The censorship over there is it's a real shame. Hopefully President Trump jumps in eventually. Obviously his focus is on COVID-19, but once he can focus on other things, hopefully he gets back to enacting policy that will prevent unfair internet censorship, because it's a real shame in the poker community. You got people that they want to silence those that they don't believe in or don't agree with. They've got to engage in this sort of acts of censorship, and it's terrible. It's actually terrible. People are so afraid of the truth being put out there. They're so afraid of differing opinions that they have to shut them down. And that's not what we do. In fact, we invited one of the founders of that group to come on this podcast tonight. He didn't come on. He didn't want to do it. So he's not on, but he had the invite. We would have given him a fair opportunity to come on, speak his views. He wouldn't have faced any censorship, but he wouldn't do it, which is a shame. So the next question coming in, and this is a question that came from somebody anonymously. So they have asked us, this almost might be a trolling question, but whatever here. The question is, will you be happy if the World Series of Poker is canceled, since it'll save you from losing $10,000? Well, the World Series, you asked me a month ago if it was going to be canceled. I always said, no, it's not going to get canceled. However, now, as we've seen WPT events get canceled, we've seen WSOP circuit get canceled. I think that the WSOP very well could see cancellations, and what's going to ultimately happen is the people at the WSOP, at Caesars, at the Rio, they've got to look and they've got to say, so what's our risk? Will we have the event actually draw in the amount of people to meet normal guarantees? Does it make sense for society for us to run this or not? And one thing that I think we could see happen is we could see a scenario where instead of a traditional World Series of Poker in Las Vegas at the Rio, they cancel all events except for the online events. And they run those events. Maybe they even try doing something similar to the main event online, but online poker is hard to televise compared to live action poker, live tournament poker. So it'll be very devastating for the WSOP, very devastating for poker, and very devastating for ESPN if we don't have the World Series. The good thing, the main event is not until July. The series itself kicks off at the end of May. They can wait and see, right? They've got time to sit back and say, let's reevaluate the situation, right? 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out, let's make a call on what we're going to do with the initial slew of events. One thing that could happen, everything could be cleared by the middle of June, and they might have to cancel the first 3 weeks of the World Series of Poker, and then the rest of it can run. As far as me, I obviously won't be happy if it's canceled. As far as losing $10,000, I actually do not intend to play the main event this year. Now, if I satellite into it, that's a different story. But if I satellite into it, I obviously won't be spending $10,000 to enter it. Simply put, my bankroll doesn't have the capital needed to be playing $10,000 tournaments. Now, if it did, of course, I would be planning to play the WSOP. I would be in Las Vegas. I would be playing this event, and I would hope to win because this is one of the times that you've got the opportunity to win 7 figures. Now, let's see here. Back to some of the questions that we're getting in. So let's see here. So I've got some troll commenting coming through. By the way, if you want to put yourself on the air, let me know because we indeed can take questions from anyone. In fact, we've got a new question that just came in. This is from John. John has a question here. He wants to know. Wait, hold on. Is this? Nope. I'm sorry. This is not from John. John is I thought I saw a question from John. Maybe he deleted it. So we don't have a question from John. So if anybody has a question, please chime in with it. Again, we have Twitter, #Poker Uncensored. You can put him directly into YouTube. We'll put your question on the air. We are not afraid of any questions. So we have another one coming in from James. His question is amazing. So, a lot of people out in the poker community, they are obsessed with me. This guy, James, he has a question. He wants to know, are you gay? Well, James, no, I am not gay. Not that there's anything wrong with that. A lot of people are gay and they enjoy that lifestyle. I am not. So, I don't know if John, I don't know if this guy was hoping to get a different answer. Maybe, some people, I could see some men being attracted to me. It's possible, but fortunately for them, I'm not gay. Oh, well. Now, back to the topic of coronavirus, right? So, should you be afraid to go play live poker? Should you be afraid to go to your local poker room if it's still open and play? I don't think people should necessarily be afraid of it, right? Remember, more people die every year from influenza than the coronavirus. However, the factors here are the people who are in that 50 plus category, the people with pre-existing conditions. If you have diabetes, you have heart disease, you have respiratory issues, COPD, for example, those people are at a higher risk. They might want to consider not playing and not doing other things where people gather, not going out to bars, not going to gatherings. And really, it's this is a decision people have to make in consultation with their doctors, with medical professionals, right? If you aren't sure if it's safe for you to go out, schedule a telemedicine appointment with your doctor. Don't go to your doctor's office because then if people are sick and go in there, you're just going to expose yourself to them. But utilize stuff like, American Well has a product lets you do a virtual visit by using your phone and a camera on it so that you can essentially talk to people, talk to your doctor through a virtual visit. So you look at something like that, use that, have an appointment, talk to your doctor and figure out what's best for you. Because again, this is an individual decision. It's an individual situation. People have got to essentially say, hey, maybe I don't want to play because maybe I do feel the risk is too high for me. And then other people could say, all right, I will play because I'm going to accept the risk of going out in public and being around other people. But ultimately, people have to make that decision themselves. They should consult with their doctors. at this point, you can't blame rooms that are staying open trying to give their employees a job, because everybody knows the risks at this point. They know it's been on, again, the front page of the New York Times, the front page of the Post, the front page of the Globe, the Herald, the front page of the Times of London. Again, every news channel out there, including internationally, right? CNN International, the BBC, CTV up in Canada, whatever, even in Iran, they're covering this on their state media, press TV. Now, they're probably putting out, the Ayatollah's skewed view on it, or whatever the Ayatollah believes, but they're still covering COVID-19 because in Iran, they have had a ton of people die from this thing. And so I'm not joking. I'm not exaggerating when I say there are people in the United States who will die from this. There are people who will not be alive the next time this podcast goes on. And that's just really the case. So we have another question here coming from Slicer. Why would you make up a question asking yourself if you're gay? Again, these questions are not made up. They come from the audience. They come from people. We take questions for this podcast through Twitter. Use hashtag Poker Uncensored. Through Facebook, through YouTube. We take them through direct messages on 3 different platforms. We even take questions that people will shout out to us at the local poker room, right? So, if somebody wants to shout out a question next time you see me in a local poker room, feel free to do it. But as if we answered to the earlier question, I will not be playing tomorrow. That is the case. So let's see if we've got any more questions coming across here. So, well, this is an interesting one. So I have a question that just hit me on Facebook here. So let's see here. Okay, and this person also wants to be anonymous. You know what? It's interesting. So a lot of people don't want their names put out there when they ask these questions, and I think it's because they're afraid of the poker trolls coming after them. They are afraid that because they watch the podcast, because they don't pander to some of the poker trolls, that they're going to come under attack. And that's it's unfortunate, but it's reality. But here at Poker Uncensored, we're able to protect those people. We're able to give them the ability to ask these questions anonymously. And so let's see what we've got here. So the question is, do you think it was the right decision? Do you think it was the right decision for Encore to close down? And I'm assuming they're talking about Encore here in Massachusetts, because Encore in Las Vegas is still open. So, again, I think that Wynn Resorts would not have closed down if it wasn't for the order that came from the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. I believe that they were taking steps to ensure that people who wanted to come and who wanted to play would be able to do so. The Massachusetts Gaming Commission this morning came in and said, hey, all of the casinos in the state have to close. So was that the right decision? I don't think it was the right decision. And from as a civil libertarian, as somebody who believes in freedom, I don't think the government should be saying you've got to close. I think it should be an individual decision that each casino would make if it's right for them to close or not. And ultimately, the customer can make the decision on whether or not they're going to go play. Nobody is forced to go to the casino. If you don't want to go to the casino because you think you're going to die of coronavirus or you think you're going to contract it, you don't have to go. But there are a lot of people that are displeased with Encore closing because they enjoy going there. They enjoy playing poker. Some people make a living playing poker, or they enjoy playing the slots and they're not happy. So I think, the people that want to go play, if they stayed open and they could go play, they'd be happy. And the people that don't want to play because they're afraid of coronavirus could sit at home. So, and maybe I'll get some flack for that. Maybe I'll get some flack because I'm not encouraging everybody to hunker down and sit at home and, somebody's going to listen to this podcast and be like, all right, I'll make the decision to go out and die. Well, if they do, That's their own decision that they made. It's on them. It's not on me. I'm saying to people, you have to look at the information that's available and come to your own decisions. I'm not going to tell you to go out or not go out. It's an individual decision. So let's see if we've got anything else here for questions. So, um, one person asked a question online earlier today, and that was, what do people do when poker is their full-time job and the casino is closed? So this came from a woman, initials are MD. So MD's question, quite interesting, right? What do people do if it's their full-time job and the casino is closed? Well, I think they're going to have kind of three main options here. One, go to a different casino that's still open, right? So you can play poker elsewhere. Option two, go play online. So you can go on to, I don't know, you can use a VPN to get on the stars. You can go on the WSOP app if you're in the right states. You can play on Carbon. You can play on America's Card Room. You could play online poker and try to make your money there, right? The third option is that they can pursue another job, right? So poker can't be played or the casino's closed. Well, you could try to get a job doing something like, for example, working at Market Basket, where they are probably in need of people to help be cashiers, baggers, and retrieve carts from the parking lot, right? So, there are other jobs out there that are not playing poker. Majority of the people that work jobs don't work playing poker. So that's certainly an option for some people. But yeah, it does suck. I mean, if your goal is to play, if your way that you make your living is playing poker and now you can't do it because the casinos are closed, it's really unfortunate. Some people might decide to try to start some sort of other venture. They could, start their own business or something. I don't know. But, of course, there are still poker rooms running, right? Mohegan Sun is still running poker. New Hampshire, they are running poker in numerous places, actually. So if you look at, what was that? If you look at Manchester Poker today, 60 plus people for a tournament up in Manchester. Live action 1-2 no limit going. Chasers Poker, Salem, New Hampshire. The Brook, Seabrook, New Hampshire. Boston Billiard Club, Nashua, New Hampshire. All of those rooms are still going. They've still got poker running. So the people that can't play at Encore anymore, consider taking the trip up to New Hampshire. Live through or die and play some poker because the rooms are open. The staff there are making money. And that's an option, right? So granted, yeah, you're not going to see games like 10-20 going off in New Hampshire, but 1-2 goes off a lot. 2-5 runs, and occasionally I think chasers would run 5-10. That kind of died off once Encore opened, but now that it's closed, well, maybe the 5-10 game will get going there again. So I do think there's opportunity for some of the rooms in New Hampshire to start kind of ramping up and saying, hey, Massachusetts shut down, we're open, right? New Hampshire's attitude compared to Massachusetts is more of a state of let the individuals make the decision, not the government. So whereas the government essentially ordered the casinos closed in Massachusetts, it's very doubtful that we'll see them do that in New Hampshire. Now, of course, under, I think, state of emergency rules, the governor could do that, but hopefully will not because, I think it should be, again, an individual business decision for whether or not that's going to happen. So let me see if we've got any additional questions that have come through here. So let's see here. We did have a person who was interested. So his name's Pat, and Pat wanted to know about, how are sports books impacted? Well, some of the sports books are closing because they don't have any sports for people to really bet on, right? NBA canceled, XFL canceled, NHL canceled, NCAA March Madness canceled. I think UFC is still going and professional bowling. So those are, and of course, professional bowling doesn't get the level of volume that these other sports get. UFC gets some decent volume, and without the sports to bet on, you're going to see sports books close. The online sports books, of course, are still open for people to go place bets on, obviously the volume is going to be down. So, that's it's unfortunate, but hopefully hopefully when everything gets back to normal, I do think we'll be able to salvage a Major League Baseball season out of this, right? So I think, by the time that June rolls around, hopefully this thing is completed. We can get a shortened Major League Baseball season out. NBA, NHL, probably XFL are kind of going to be screwed at that point. Maybe they'll somehow be able to salvage a playoff. I don't know. But it's a wait and see, right? A lot of these cancellations and postponements, like until further notice, because the conditions are changing daily, they're changing every day. So we've been on the air for half an hour. We're going to take a final check to see if we've got any additional questions that have come in. This is your last chance. You guys got like 60 seconds to get those questions in. Again, DM them, put them on Twitter, put them on the YouTube feed, put them on Facebook. Let us know your questions, because we are going to go off the air if we don't get any. So let's see here. Oh, yeah, there was a question somebody asked me earlier. I forget who it was, but it was about, do you think that the Borgata Almighty Stack and the Spring Poker Open will go off in April? So, that is roughly we're looking at about a month off, right, for that. So the Almighty starts, actually it's a little bit less than that for the main Open. I believe they start the Open on April 7th. The Almighty, I believe, starts on April 14th. Now, the Almighty is the 100K true deep stack event, one of the best in the country. So on the 7th, that is only, let's see here, that's about 3.5 weeks away. So if things don't improve in the next 2 weeks to 3 weeks, I think we may see the Spring Poker Open canceled. That would be unfortunate, because that is a great event. I mean, $1 million guarantee on the 600, 500K on the Almighty Stack. It's one of my favorite events to play, but again, the Borgata has actually gone through and they've suspended tournament guarantees right now. They've also they've implemented a lot of changes there and in other spots in Atlantic City due to coronavirus / COVID-19. So I think, we won't really know until we get closer to the end of March what's going to happen with the Borgata Open. I do hope it goes off, but it unfortunately could be at risk of cancellation. I think we're already seeing April events canceled. The Seminole Hard Rock poker event that was supposed to be in April, that's being postponed. So again, it's going to be a wait and see approach on that. So I think we've gotten through all of the questions that we had this evening. To just wrap up the podcast tonight, right? So one thing, just want to let everyone know, thank you for listening to Poker Uncensored, right? We would not have this great podcast if it wasn't for the people. And then the other thing I want to remind you of, we have a Facebook page, Poker Uncensored Podcast. We have a Facebook community, Poker Uncensored. We allow everything poker to be talked about. We don't censor people and oppress them because of their views. And we also will announce the date and the time in the next episode. By the way, if you missed part of the show, it's free to rewatch on YouTube. So again, we have a poker troll by the name of Chris Paolino who likes to come in and he likes to spam our feed with basically dumb statements, dumb questions, dumb attacks. So, I'm just going to start throwing them up on the air here right now. So let's see. First off, guy accuses of me being gay. Well, I just answered that I'm not gay. Says I have no friends. Again, false. Says that I make up the questions because I'm insane. Again, false. And furthermore, if he really wanted me to have to be verified as sane or not, he could have shown up in court last week, told the judge I was an insane person, and demanded a sanity test. He didn't. Why? Because he is a coward. He is a huge coward. This is a guy who gets off on trolling. He has no respect for anybody else. He defies the norms of society. He's a huge coward. And by the way, he turned to criminal with criminal conduct I had to go to court to deal with this loser. I get prank called multiple times a day, by the way, too. This guy, if he ends up in a prison cell, I won't mind it because it'll probably make society better off. But ultimately, the guy is a criminal. He was ordered into court twice, didn't show up, and the judge will be handing down an order soon, and that order will hopefully take care of this guy and put an end to his ridiculous trolling, because he does nothing useful besides troll, right? He just comes in, he trolls, you try to block him, he creates fake accounts. And he creates fake accounts to avoid it. So this guy is bad news. I'm tired of his trolling, and I'm hoping that we get an end to it. In any case, here's another one. He calls me a delusional psychopath. Delusional psychopath, right? Meanwhile, he's the one who's out there committing crimes, committing identity theft, committing impersonation. 18 pages of evidence went to the judge last week on that. So, needless to say, Mr. Paolino, you're the one who has problems. And that is a wrap for Poker Uncensored this evening. Again, if you missed part of the show, it is free to rewatch on YouTube, and we will be back in the near future. And hopefully, I would love it if I am wrong and none of the people in the poker community die from coronavirus. That would be great, but reality is some people are going to die. There are going to be deaths. And that is very unfortunate. So once again, thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.